Mark Rodriguez had always been the model homeowner in Oak Ridge Estates, a meticulously maintained suburban neighborhood known for its strict homeowners association. At 42, he was a cybersecurity consultant who worked primarily from home, valuing peace, order, and minimal social interaction. His modest two-story craftsman-style house stood as a testament to his meticulous nature: slate gray siding power-washed quarterly, landscaping precisely trimmed, and not a single blade of grass out of place. The generator had been more than just a purchase, it was a carefully considered investment. Last year's hurricane had left Oak Ridge Estates devastated for weeks. Power lines down, cell towers damaged, and entire families struggling without electricity. Mark had watched his neighbors suffer, scrambling for resources dependent on overloaded community centers and limited municipal support. He lost nearly $10,000 worth of computer equipment and work contracts during that nightmare, a professional disaster he was determined never to repeat. When he first brought home the heavy-duty Generac whole house generator, he consulted the HOA bylaws meticulously. He even hired a local contractor recommended by the association to ensure proper installation. The unit was placed strategically, tucked beside a 6-foot privacy fence, positioned to minimize visual impact, and painted a neutral gray that matched his house's exterior. To Mark, it was the ultimate insurance policy: quiet, efficient, and practically invisible. But invisibility was a relative concept in Oak Ridge Estates. The neighborhood was a microcosm of suburban social dynamics, where perception mattered more than reality. Founded in the early 2000s, it had grown from a modest development to a highly sought-after community. Property values were consistently above market rate, largely due to the stringent control exercised by the Homeowners Association. Every mailbox height, every lawn ornament, every exterior paint color was subject to review and potential rejection. Linda Hartwell, the current HOA board president, had transformed this control into an art form. A retired high school administrative assistant with a reputation for bureaucratic zealotry, she saw her role not just as a community manager, but as a guardian of suburban aesthetic perfection. Her weekly newsletters were legendary. Multi-page documents that read more like legal briefs than community updates, complete with footnotes, citations of specific bylaw sections, and passive-aggressive commentary. Mark had always managed to stay below Linda's radar. His property was immaculate, his interactions with neighbors minimal but cordial. He paid his dues on time, attended the mandatory annual meetings, and never challenged the association's numerous rules. The generator was supposed to be his one concession to personal preparedness, a silent sentinel against potential future disruptions. Little did he know that this seemingly innocuous piece of equipment would become the spark that would ignite a controversy far beyond a simple HOA dispute. The generator was about to become the centerpiece of a story that would involve federal investigations, hidden neighborhood secrets, and a drama that would transform Oak Ridge Estates forever. As the early morning sun cast long shadows across his perfectly manicured lawn, Mark could never have imagined the extraordinary chain of events his generator would set in motion. Linda Hartwell's transformation into the neighborhood's most notorious micromanager wasn't an overnight process. It was the culmination of decades of pent-up frustration, unmet ambitions, and a desperate need for control that had been brewing since her early days as a school administrative assistant. Divorced for 15 years with 2 adult children who lived out of state and rarely called, Linda had channeled her considerable energy into the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. What had started as a modest volunteer position had become her entire universe. The monthly board meetings were her stage, the bylaws her script, and every homeowner a potential subject of her meticulous scrutiny. The generator became her latest crusade. She had first spotted it during her weekly neighborhood patrol, a self-appointed ritual where she would drive her silver Lexus RX 350 through the streets, clipboard in hand, looking for any potential violations. Mark Rodriguez's generator was like a beacon to her hypercritical eye. It didn't matter that the unit was barely visible, painted to match the house, and professionally installed. To Linda, that represented a breach of the aesthetic harmony she had sworn to protect. Her initial approach was characteristically bureaucratic. The first warning letter was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive language, spanning 3 pages and citing no fewer than 7 different sections of the HOA bylaws. She referenced obscure regulations about external equipment visibility, neighborhood aesthetic uniformity, and potential property value impact. The letter was printed on her personalized letterhead, a detail she took particular pride in, and hand-delivered to Mark's mailbox. When the first letter produced no immediate action, Linda escalated. She began a systematic campaign of documentation. Photographs taken from various angles, measurements of the generator's visibility from different points on the street, and a detailed log of its perceived infractions. She recruited other board members, and most were reluctant participants in her crusade. Jack Thompson, the board's treasurer, had long grown weary of Linda's zealotry. "It's a generator, Linda," he said during one heated board meeting. "The man bought it after last year's hurricane. Most of us were grateful someone was prepared. But preparation meant nothing to Linda. Control was everything. She began to research Mark Rodriguez more extensively. Late-night internet searches, conversations with longtime neighborhood residents, any scrap of information she could gather. Why did a cybersecurity consultant need such a robust generator? What was he hiding? Her imagination began to construct elaborate scenarios of potential wrongdoing. The generator became more than just an aesthetic issue. It became a personal mission. Linda's children, who rarely engaged with her, had long since tired of her controlling nature. Her daughter, a marketing executive in Chicago, would roll her eyes during their infrequent phone calls. "Mom, not everyone is trying to destroy the neighborhood," she'd say. But Linda saw threats everywhere, and now this generator was the most significant threat of all. Little did she know how prophetic her obsession would become. The generator was about to become the catalyst for a series of events that would expose secrets far beyond her wildest imagination. Secrets that would shake Oak Ridge Estates to its very foundation. The morning was crisp and clear, with a thin layer of frost still clinging to the manicured lawns of Oak Ridge Estates. Mark Rodriguez's security system would prove to be both a blessing and a curse on the day of the generator's disappearance. His home security setup was nothing short of professional, a testament to his work in cybersecurity. Multiple cameras covered every angle of the property, high-resolution lenses capturing details with crystal clarity. Motion sensors, encrypted cloud storage, and a custom-built monitoring system that would make most professional security firms look amateurish. Mark had designed it himself, a hobby that was both a professional necessity and a personal passion. Linda Hartwell had been planning the generator's removal for weeks. Her usual meticulousness extended to this illicit operation, carefully orchestrated like one of her infamous HOA compliance missions. She had studied Mark's routine, observing his work patterns through binoculars and carefully timed neighborhood walks. She knew he typically started work early, locked in his home office by 6:30 a.m., with noise-canceling headphones that would render him oblivious to external sounds. On that particular Wednesday, she struck with surgical precision. At 5:47 a.m., Linda's silver Lexus RX 350 rolled silently down Oak Ridge Drive. She was dressed not in her usual professional attire, but in dark, nondescript clothing, a black windbreaker, dark jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over her eyes. The neighborhood was silent, save for the occasional early morning jogger or newspaper delivery. Her approach was methodical. She had brought specialized equipment, a compact hydraulic lift jack, furniture dollies, and heavy-duty moving straps. The generator wasn't light, weighing nearly 300 pounds, but Linda had planned for every contingency. Years of moving school equipment and managing logistical challenges had prepared her for this moment. The security cameras captured everything in excruciating detail. Her careful approach, the precise positioning of the dollies, the way she disconnected the generator with practiced movements. To an observer, she moved with the efficiency of a professional mover, not a 62-year-old HOA board president committing what was technically a theft. Mark's system began recording the moment motion was detected. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, camera angles, everything was meticulously logged. But Linda believed she had thought of everything. A signal jammer hidden in her jacket pocket was designed to interfere with wireless transmission, creating brief moments of static in the video feed. What she didn't know was that Mark's system had a redundant backup, a secondary cellular connection that would capture and transmit data even when the primary network was compromised. By 6:15 a.m., the generator was loaded into her SUV. Linda allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The eyesore would be gone, the neighborhood aesthetic restored to her vision of perfection. She had no idea that her actions were about to set in motion a chain of events that would expose secrets far beyond a simple HOA dispute. As she drove away, the morning sun began to rise over Oak Ridge Estates, casting long shadows and illuminating a neighborhood on the brink of an extraordinary revelation. Special Agent Sarah Thompson had been working the Oak Ridge Estates investigation for the better part of 18 months. At 35, she was a rising star in the FBI's white-collar crime division, with a reputation for meticulous research and unconventional problem-solving. What had begun as a routine investigation into potential real estate fraud had morphed into something far more complex. The generator was no ordinary piece of equipment. Buried deep within its sophisticated electrical system was a custom-designed tracking and surveillance device that represented the pinnacle of covert technology. Created by a specialized team of FBI tech experts, the device was capable of intercepting digital communications, tracking financial transactions, and gathering intelligence on a network of suspected money launderers operating within the seemingly pristine suburbs of the metropolitan area. Mark Rodriguez's generator had been strategically placed as part of an elaborate multi-agency operation. The location was carefully chosen, positioned at a critical point that allowed for maximum signal interception from multiple nearby properties. What looked like a simple backup power unit was actually a sophisticated listening post, designed to capture encrypted communications and financial data from several suspected criminal enterprises. When Agent Thompson received the initial alert about the generator's unauthorized movement, her first reaction was controlled panic. Years of field experience had taught her that in surveillance operations, unexpected events were rarely good news. The tracking system showed the device had been disconnected and moved, with only fragmented data transmission in the hours following its removal. The initial investigation revealed a bizarre chain of events. Surveillance footage from Mark's property showed Linda Hartwell, a 62-year-old HOA board president, methodically loading the generator into her vehicle. It was so absurd that Thompson initially thought it was a system glitch or a deliberately planned misdirection. Further digging revealed layers of complexity that defied explanation. Mark Rodriguez, the generator's owner, had no apparent connection to the ongoing investigation. His background check was pristine. A successful cybersecurity consultant with no criminal record, minimal social media presence, and a history of paying taxes meticulously. Yet he was now inadvertently at the center of a federal investigation that stretched far beyond a simple neighborhood dispute. The money laundering network they were tracking had roots in local real estate, construction contracts, and seemingly legitimate business operations. Oak Ridge Estates itself had become a focal point of interest. Its tight-knit community and strict HOA regulations made a perfect front for financial manipulation. Agent Thompson's team began to piece together a disturbing picture. The generator's removal wasn't just a simple theft. It was a potential compromise of a months-long investigation that had cost millions in resources and countless hours of careful planning. "We can't lose this," Thompson muttered to her partner, Agent Michael Rodriguez, no relation to Mark. The stakes were too high. The network they were investigating had tentacles that reached into local government, real estate development, and potentially even law enforcement. As she reviewed the initial reports, a sardonic smile crossed her face. The HOA board president who had stolen the generator had no idea how close she was to unraveling something far bigger than a neighborhood aesthetic dispute. The game had just changed, and Mark Rodriguez, completely unknowingly, was now a key piece in a much larger puzzle. Little did anyone know that the generator's theft was about to expose a conspiracy that would shake Oak Ridge Estates to its very foundation. The conference room at the local FBI field office felt like a pressure cooker. Mark Rodriguez sat uncomfortably, his cybersecurity background making him hyper-aware of every detail. The slightly askew blinds, the water stain on the ceiling tile, the barely perceptible hum of electronic surveillance equipment. Special Agent Sarah Thompson studied him with a mixture of frustration and curiosity. Mark was not the typical witness. Most people would be nervous, fidgeting, offering unnecessary explanations. Instead, he sat with a clinical detachment that suggested he was analyzing the situation as meticulously as he would a complex network security breach. "Let me get this straight," Thompson began, spreading out a series of photographs and documents. "Linda Hartwell, your HOA board president, took a federal surveillance device disguised as your generator and has no idea what she's actually done." Mark's response was typical of his methodical nature. "Technically, she stole private property. The generator was legally purchased and installed according to all HOA regulations. I have extensive documentation." He slid a thick binder across the table, color-coded tabs, meticulously organized emails, precise measurements, and a complete record of his interactions with the HOA. The confrontation had begun earlier that morning, a surreal dance of bureaucratic precision and federal investigation. Linda had arrived at the local police station to file a complaint about Mark's aggressive accusations, only to find herself intercepted by federal agents. Her usual confidence had crumbled the moment she realized the generator was more than just a neighborhood dispute. "I was protecting the neighborhood's aesthetic value," Linda had shouted, her voice rising an octave with each word. "Those bylaws are sacred. We can't have just anyone putting whatever they want on their property." Agent Thompson had heard many justifications in her years of law enforcement, but this was a new level of bureaucratic absurdity. The surveillance team had spent months carefully positioning the generator, integrating its sophisticated tracking and listening devices into what appeared to be a standard backup power unit. Linda's action had not just removed a piece of equipment, she had potentially compromised a multi-agency investigation into a complex money laundering operation. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. Mark Rodriguez, a cybersecurity expert who made a living identifying and preventing security breaches, had become an unwitting participant in a federal operation. His meticulously maintained property and documentation were now crucial pieces of evidence. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Thompson asked Linda, who sat rigidly in her chair, her earlier bravado replaced by a growing sense of panic. Linda's response was pure HOA board president. "I was following protocol. There are rules. Always rules." Her fingers nervously pleated the hem of her blazer, a telltale sign of her increasing anxiety. Mark watched the interaction with a detached professional interest. His security systems had captured everything: Linda's approach, the generator's removal, the precise timestamps. What should have been a simple neighborhood dispute had transformed into something far more complex. Mrs. Hartwell, Agent Thompson continued, "You've just interfered with a federal investigation. Those bylaws you're so fond of, they're about to become the least of your problems." As the confrontation unfolded, nobody in the room, not Mark, not Linda, not even the seasoned FBI agents, could have predicted the full extent of the revelations that were about to emerge. The generator theft was just the beginning of a story that would expose secrets far deeper than any HOA regulation could contain. The investigation spread like a digital wildfire, consuming everything in its path. What had begun as a simple generator theft quickly transformed into a labyrinthine expose of corruption that stretched far beyond Oak Ridge Estates. Agent Sarah Thompson and her team began to pull at the threads of the neighborhood's seemingly pristine facade. Each document, each financial record, each intercepted communication revealed another layer of a complex criminal network that had been operating in plain sight for years. The initial focus was on the real estate development companies associated with the neighborhood. Apex Development Group, the primary developer of Oak Ridge Estates, had long been considered a model of suburban construction. Now their meticulously maintained records told a different story. Forensic accountants discovered an intricate money laundering scheme that used HOA fees, property sales, and construction contracts as elaborate money-washing mechanisms. Linda Hartwell, it turned out, was more than just an overzealous HOA president. Financial records showed she had been receiving substantial consulting fees from multiple shell companies connected to Apex Development. What appeared to be her obsessive enforcement of neighborhood rules was actually a carefully constructed cover for a much darker operation. Mark Rodriguez found himself in the unusual position of being both a witness and an unexpected key to the investigation. His cybersecurity background proved invaluable. The very skills he used to protect corporate networks now helped federal investigators trace digital breadcrumbs that the criminals had believed were permanently erased. The technology hidden within the generator became the Rosetta Stone of the investigation. Its sophisticated tracking and interception capabilities had captured years of communications, emails, encrypted messages, financial transactions that painted a comprehensive picture of the criminal enterprise. Local politicians weren't spared from the investigation's scope. 3 city council members, 2 county commissioners, and a state representative found themselves under intense scrutiny. The web of corruption extended through multiple levels of local government, with tentacles reaching into construction permits, zoning approvals, and municipal contracts. Jack Thompson, the HOA board's treasurer, whom Linda had previously dismissed, became a crucial witness. His meticulous financial records, which he had carefully preserved despite Linda's attempts to marginalize him, provided critical evidence of the financial irregularities. The neighborhood that had prided itself on its manicured lawns and strict regulations was revealed to be built on a foundation of fraud, money laundering, and systematic corruption. Residents who had believed they were living in an exclusive, well-managed community now found themselves at the center of a federal investigation that would make national headlines. For Mark Rodriguez, the experience was surreal. The generator he had purchased as a simple precaution against power outages had become the linchpin of an investigation that would reshape the understanding of suburban crime. His cybersecurity expertise, combined with his obsessive documentation, had turned him from a quiet homeowner into a key federal witness. Agent Thompson watched as the pieces fell into place. The generator theft by Linda Hartwell, an act she believed was about maintaining neighborhood aesthetics, had inadvertently triggered an investigation that would expose one of the most sophisticated local corruption networks her team had ever encountered. As federal agents began making arrests and securing warrants, the pristine facade of Oak Ridge Estates crumbled. The neighborhood that had once been a symbol of suburban perfection was about to become infamous for something entirely different.